Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, karibu sana to the program. We continue with our conversation on the funding counties, and of course this conversation just coming after there was a consensus between the Senate and the National Assembly on how much should be allocated to the counties in the next financial year. What we are looking at right now is 400 billion shillings. Initially, the National Assembly had proposed 391 billion shillings, and of course we had the Senate there who had wanted 415. The governors themselves had wanted 450 billion shillings, and this varying figures is what took all the stakeholders at play to sit at the negotiating table and come up with a figure that would be a win-win for both the devolved units and also will be sensitive to the current times economically in the country. And that is what, according to what Mheshimiwa Dr. Makali Mulu explained to us earlier, led them to agree on that figure, 400 billion shillings. And I'd just like to pick it from there. Daktari, before we went to the break, I actually loved, how we had opened up this conversation to really look at the issues that we should actually be talking about. And I asked a very pertinent question, which I would like you to weigh in on. What then should we be talking about, Daktari, from where you sit? You have told us about these varying figures and even the processes that it took you to agree on why counties deserve to get 400 billion shillings. But should we talk about increasing allocation to counties, or should we talk about the ills on the spending of public funds at the counties first? Should we clean up the house or expand it? Yeah. That's basically what I'm asking.
Yeah, sure. When you look at our constitution, it is very clear that matters public finance must be handled in a very open and accountable way. But before I come to accountability issues, let me just say 2 or 3 things about what my colleagues had said, and then I come to accountability issues. One of the other things we considered also is the fact that if we did not agree, there would have been like a shutdown. Because one of the court rulings did say that if you don't pass the Division of Revenue Bill to become an act of parliament, you can't actually appropriate. So it means unless we get this right, we can't then talk about the budget. And that was also another guiding principle that you need to get this agreement. Then the other matter is the matter of CRA, which has been raised by Ken. When you look at the constitution, it says CRA will advise Parliament. That is both Senate and the National Assembly. And the advice will be considered. So to me, I think that punch that you must take is not there. And I think as we move to the future, it will be important as a country to think about CRA. Because, CRA does a lot.
Soft provision.
Yeah, they do a lot of research. Actually, most of their figures are informed by research. Data. So, in a situation where you get what I would call evidence-informed recommendations, and you ignore them, there are question marks. So I think we need to look at the only, because the Constitution says will be considered, which means it's not should be.
It's not a must.
It can be. No. So in that case, then it leaves that room. Then the other item is, because for now I come to the issues of accountability, is what Ken was also talking about. The law says that you only consider audited and approved revenue figures, which means after the Auditor General looks at the revenue figures, Parliament must approve. And now we are in 2 years arrears. So you see, we are talking about revenue 2 years, because it's 2021, 2022. So how I wish Parliament is trying their best, our Public Accounts Committee is trying their best to catch up with it, so that we are every year with just immediate year. That will help. Now, matters of accountability are matters which are of concern to everyone in this country. And I want to agree with this Mio, because when you look at the Auditor General reports, they are saying 30% of the money we budget for is either misdirected or misappropriated. And if you take just a quick, we are talking about a 3 trillion almost now 4 trillion budget.
3.9.
30% of that is almost go to 1.4 trillion. Just a quick calculation. Now, if you look at our scenario the way it is now, this year we target to borrow about 580 billion, about 584 billion. That's what we target to borrow. That means that's our budget deficit, which means automatically, if we were to clear corruption, a third of it, we'll have met that. So there will be no need of borrowing.
Yeah.
This year, the controversial finance bill, which everybody is talking about, is expected to generate 302 billion. So if we cleared corruption, we did a bit of a proportional corruption, just a small percentage of corruption, we will say...
The controversy will not be there.
No, it's not controversy. We'll say this year we don't have a finance bill.
That's
so
what I'm saying,
let's operate with the 2023 finance bill.
Yeah.
And we can even look at where we are saying now VAT fuel is high, let's reduce it, because we'll have enough resources. So what we are saying the elephant in the room is actually corruption. And that's what should be discussed. That's where we should be having a national conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, what do we do to sort out? Because once we sort this one out, we'll have surplus budget. We'll be able to plan for our needs. And at the end of the day, after planning for our needs, we'll be able to tell a country which is the most poorest country these days in Africa, we can donate some surplus to them so that they stabilize their finance.
I love you laughing at that. But it's serious, though.
So
Kevin,
it's a very serious matter. And that's why when you look at this issue, we have now, governors have done the 10 years. Most of the governors have done 10 years. That was the first lot. And now they have exited, and now we have a new lot, another cycle of 10 years. If you look at the first lot of 10 years, which was 47 governors, about 8 of them or 9 are already in court, corruption-related matters. That's about a quarter of the governors in court, corruption-related matters, which means this animal called corruption is real. It's not a story, it's real. It's not a story.
Right.
When you come to the headquarters now, look at, actually, anytime I debate reports of the Auditor General in Parliament, I get very annoyed. Although I'm debating, I feel very bad that I'm debating these things, because the things written in those reports, you can't imagine happening in Kenya. A country where we pride ourselves of most educated people in town. Some of the reasons why people are not able to account for resources is because they can't prepare proper books of accounts. And some are CPA with, in quotes, CPA K, meaning CPA Kenya. This guy is so qualified, and he can't prepare simple books of accounts. This is rubbish.
All right. Ken, why do you think the dream that, because I call it a dream because we are not seeing it yet, the dream that he has painted for us, getting to a country where we have surplus and, of course, even donating to other countries, why does it seem to be so difficult to get to that particular target? What are some of the complexities that lie in between that we have to deal with first before we get to that particular, vision that he has painted for us?
I think as a Kenyan, I dream for a time when corruption will be so painful that if you think of putting your hands in a public coffer, you won't imagine the consequences. It has happened in Asian countries. Singapore has done it. Korea has done it. But what happens in our country? I know of guys who can even brag in public places that they stole. They have built mansions. And they have no apologies. So until we will reach a point where this country will make it so painful for anybody to be corrupt, then we will have to move somewhere. Do
you think we are toying with it?
We are toying with it because there is no political will. We seem to be talking too much. This country, we talk too much, but do very little. I have been in meetings where we have even told people that, as counties, we are putting so much resources in non-priority projects. When you go to counties and even national governments, you find a lot of extravagance. You find people engaging in unnecessary meetings. And people spend 3 million, 4 million, 5 million. When you look at that and you know that there is a dispensary that has no drugs, but here we have called for people in the name of public participation in quotes, and we are feeding them, we are giving them bus fare, and some of them even came to their houses walking. So we need to reach to a point whereby we will be able to obey. Like the Public Finance Management Act 2012 stipulates properly on how funds must be budgeted for, how funds must be accounted for, how funds must be spent. But you know what happens? People throw caution to the wind. They spend money, have money, money will fight the system.
The unfortunate truth. Kevin, you know, when the devolution journey began in 2013, there was that beautiful, you know, expectation of how governance was going to be brought closer to the people, how services are going to come, you know, closer to the people. The national cake was going to be divided and each and every part of the country will have a slice of it. But did we look at the ills that also would have come along with it so many years down the line? You know, how has that, you know, affected us? Failure to just be sensitive to, you know, sealing those loopholes then that we are now paying for now?
Quite a very good question. And if we just went back to what the Transition Authority had advised and indicated in their report, where, for instance, we were supposed to undertake an audit of assets, transitioning from the former local governments now to county governments. I don't know the status, but from my information that I have is that that report was just handed over, received by the president, kaput, that is where it ended. But there were lots of recommendations in terms of what the local authorities had lost, which therefore meant that county governments needed to recover them and therefore not budget for new assets as we transitioned into devolved governance. Of course, resources, therefore, in terms of financial money, was therefore lost, because if you have a car that you can't trace, and there's a driver who reports every day to drive a car which was bought and is lost, then you say, we will now buy another car for the driver who can't account for the driver for the car which is supposed to be driving. And many, many examples, including even shelves, you know, many things. Further to that is also the question of accountability. So at County Governance Watch, we have a tool called the County Governance Index, which assesses performance of counties. And so what we look at, or let me say what we used to look at, because we've made certain changes, was performance in terms of 5 service delivery areas, meaning health, education, water, agriculture, and infrastructure. But as we continued engaging with the citizens, they told us, County Governance Watch and Kevin Osido and your team, we don't have a problem with all these things you guys want us to rank or rate how they are being performed. We know where the issues are. Why don't you also tell us about how the monies are being used, and especially on accountability? So we introduced another index called Transparency, Accountability, and Integrity, TAI. Now, what we have seen happening in counties is that most of the officers we have, of course, almost all counties have a unit called the Service Delivery Unit. Yeah, it is similar to what we have at the Presidential Delivery Unit, former and even current. But those units, from a citizen perspective and from a governance expert, if I could probably call myself that, are just moribund. Purposely to provide good reports for governors to go and write about and maybe look for opportunities to look for more funding, which is what we are talking about.
So objectivity is lacking.
But if you asked them, so what exactly does the unit provide? So much such that there are no mechanisms to engage citizens effectively through public participation on some of the projects that are being done, despite the fact that the law even expects them to have service delivery charters, so that when a road is being built, indicate who is building it, when does it start, when does it end, how much money is being spent. We even have what we call the project implementation committees for county governments that are also made, including county officials and also citizens. But a number of times, the citizens complain that even the things we discussed in those meetings is not what we see happening. So we will probably need to look at how we address the question of integrity that we are now talking about, learning from the past. And Waziri here has talked about other jurisdictions. How do they deal with corruption? Here in Kenya, one, the cases that have got to do with corruption take endless times. As Mheshimiwa says, you can't serve as a governor for 10 years and you have a corruption case and you serve your entire term and the case is still active. Which is why I probably agree with Waziri Ken. BBI had proposed a 2-year limit. Is it possible that we agree on a time limit for corruption cases, whether it is mega or minor, depending on what case it is? The other aspect is to empower citizens. And in empowering citizens, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission needs to do more. The prevention aspect and the prevention unit and prevention and awareness creation unit of the commission, I don't think is being felt by a number of citizens. How do we report corruption? And when we report corruption, do we need a feedback or a response in terms of the progress of the case, or is it just a report that is made and that's where it ends? Are there opportunities to protect whistleblowers or people who report these corruption cases? These, Serafin, are issues that citizens have told us, and we have indicated or written or engaged EACC and other institutions that need to protect devolution so that the dream that you are talking about really is realized. And I have to really also, on the other hand, commend counties because they've done quite some insurmountable work. In some of the counties, we never had, certain services being delivered at the health facilities. Mandera, for example, which had its own first CS just during the corruption moment. We've had now roads that were never passable, impassable roads in the past, having been done by county governments. We have children who, were it not for devolution, would never had seen any door of a school. We have people who've been employed by counties who have had looked for jobs for more than almost the entire career life of their being. So many successes, but I think we still have lots of gaps and missteps that we need to address, and particularly on judicious use of financial resources for counties. And I agree with my co-panelists, because if you look at what we call on-source revenue for counties, the counties have immense potential to raise their own monies, even without relying on national trade.
Kevin, allow me to just put a comma on that, because that was the next thing I wanted us to get to. Like, we're asking for more, but how are we doing in terms of how counties are generating funds? But before we get there, Ken, it's not just corruption we are talking about. We are also talking about extravagant things that counties are doing with the money that they receive. I'm shocked when I see reports such as one county I will not mention, the officials went to Congo for a fact-finding mission to improve their sports prowess. 5 million shillings was gobbled up because of that particular trip. Once in this country, a wheelbarrow costed us over 100,000 shillings, and I can go on and on about the list of what I call weird expenditures that we have seen from the counties. You have worked in the counties. Tell us a bit more about how does it work? Like, before a county decides that we are going to take 10 million shillings to go for a conference in Zimbabwe, what happens? And what recourse does the public have in that particular decision?
I am lucky I have worked in the national government, I've worked with the counties, I've worked in the private sector. I'm now self-employed. So I'm an all-way-round personnel.
Experience.
So one of the things that I discovered when I went to counties, and I kept on sharing with my governor, that we have a problem with the staffing in procurement. You know, the national government, and Mheshimiwa is here, he will agree with me, the national government things are structured. You have to want to procure something, it has to begin from a requisition, the user has to generate it, the director of administration has to approve, it has to go for, procurement to advertise and so forth. There's a tender committee there that will adjudicate until the order is given. But when you go to counties, when governors came, there was, especially the first phase and second phase of devolution, there was a rush to hire. And some of the people that were hired are the people that you look at and you wonder whether, okay, there is a push to help our people. The thing at the counties is we must help our people. This is a daughter to my sister who has been unemployed. This daughter, the only thing that they have is that they went to some college on top of a building, and they came out with a paper that cannot even be verified. And these are the people who has been sent to go and head a whole department like the Minister of Health, procurement. So you go there, and because I'm a specialist, I go there and look at what they are doing. And you know, there is no even price control. There's no quality control. That's why sometimes you buy something, and at the end of the day, when they tell you that this pen costed 1,000 shillings, you're even shocked. But you see, in the national government, my procurement office had what I was calling a secretariat, staffed with very qualified and competent people. And there are guys who are just charged with doing market surveys. Every day they are doing intelligence. When a quotation lands on my table, I forward it to that office. And their work is to ensure that they go out and, benchmark and, compare. They go to every other places. So that when you arrive on a price, you're arriving on a price that is a consumer rate that will give value for money.
Verifiable.
But I can tell you that the problem that we are facing at the counties is that we have capacity issues. Capacity issues, but...
Could it be deliberate, though? Because I wonder why a governor who really have the interest of the populace at heart would hire somebody that they actually already know that this person is not going to deliver on this mandate. Could it, somehow be deliberate?
Mheshimiwa is here and he will tell you that when you win an election, you begin planning for another election.
It starts.
So if you gonga somebody who has been your point man in that region, and this is the daughter or the son whom you employed. So at the end of the day, your hands are tied. So what we are saying is that we need to do a lot of checks and balances in counties. And I will propose that even investigating agencies like EACC should devolve their services. Because when you report to Nairobi, by the time they come to Mandera or Trans Nzoia or somewhere in Busia, things will have already happened. So I think one of the things that we should do is that we need to strengthen accountability agencies and devolve them to the grassroots, to the county level, so that even a common man, Mwananchi, can easily walk there and say, I have seen something happening in the Ministry of Roads that I think is not right, and people will take action. But as long as people know that by the time watu waenda Nairobi, I will have sorted them at the airport.
Or offices banned, by the way.
Yes, offices banned.
I've been having this conversation with a panel of 3 gentlemen. Unfortunately, Governor Natembeya could not join us, but I've been speaking to Dr. Makali Mulu, the Member of Parliament for Kitui Central Constituency. He sits at the Budget and Appropriations Committee at the National Assembly. I've also been speaking to Ken Simiu, a former CEC of Finance, Trans Nzoia County, and of course also Kevin Osido, Executive Director, County Governance Watch. Asanteni sana for creating time. That's how we end it. Of course, it's just a comma we are putting. This conversation should actually continue. A lot that we need to talk about when it comes to how public funds is spent.